The starship trembled as another blast hit its shields. Admiral Patricia Winters gripped the edge of her command console, her gray eyes fixed on the tactical display. All around Earth's outer defense ring, warning lights flashed. "Status report," she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. "3 more Alliance outposts have gone dark, Admiral," replied Lieutenant Sam Reeves. "That makes 17 this week." Patricia nodded grimly. The Veracians were moving faster than anyone had predicted. These insect-like creatures operated as a single mind across thousands of ships, making them terrifyingly efficient. In just 2 years, they had conquered nearly a third of known space. Earth had stayed out of galactic politics for decades. After the resource wars of 2178, humanity had turned inward, focusing on rebuilding their world and developing their solar system. The Intergalactic Alliance had respected their wishes, rarely calling on Earth for help. Until now. "Admiral, there's an Alliance diplomatic vessel requesting permission to dock," said Communications Officer Lisa Boyd. "They say it's urgent." "Let them through," Patricia ordered. The alien who stepped onto the command deck was tall and thin with blue-tinted skin. Ambassador Zach Screen moved with the fluid grace typical of the Narration people. "Admiral Winters," the ambassador said, bowing slightly, "I come with a message from the Alliance Council." Patricia led the ambassador to the conference room. Once they were seated, Zach Screen activated a holographic projector. The image showed dozens of worlds burning, fleets scattered, and refugees fleeing in every direction. "The Alliance is falling," Zach Screen said simply. "The Veracians destroy everything in their path. Our combined fleets have failed to stop them." "And you think Earth can help?" Patricia asked. "You humans have something the rest of us lack," the ambassador replied. "Your history is filled with warfare. You understand conflict in ways we never have. The Alliance needs your military leadership." Halfway across the solar system, Captain Daniel Grant received urgent orders to report to Alliance headquarters on Mars. Daniel was known throughout Earth's fleet for his unusual tactics. Some called him reckless, but no one questioned his results. Daniel's shuttle landed at the massive complex that housed Earth's military command. Inside, senior officers from all branches were gathered around a large table. President Olivia Clark sat at the head, her expression serious. "Captain Grant," she said, "thank you for coming so quickly." "What's happening, Madam President?" Daniel asked. General Frank Roberts, head of Earth's Space Force, activated the room's main display. "The Veracians have pushed deeper into Alliance territory than we thought possible. At their current rate, they'll reach our solar system within 6 months." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Why haven't we heard about this before now?" asked Daniel. "We've been monitoring the situation," President Clark replied, "but many believed the Alliance would handle it without our help. And now," Daniel looked around the room. "Now we have a choice to make," said the President. "Do we join this fight, or do we stay isolated and hope our defenses hold when the Veracians arrive?" The debate lasted for hours. Some argued that Earth should focus on strengthening its own defenses. Others insisted that fighting the Veracians alongside the Alliance gave humanity better odds for survival. Finally, President Clark raised her hand for silence. "I've heard all your arguments," she said, "but the truth is simple. If the Alliance falls, Earth stands alone against an enemy that has already defeated dozens of advanced civilizations." She stood, looking at each person in the room. "Humanity will join this fight. We will commit our forces to the Alliance's defense, and we will show the galaxy what humans can do when pushed to the edge." Admiral Winters received the orders an hour later. Earth would send its first fleet to the front lines, with her in command. As Patricia prepared her ships, reports arrived of another Alliance world falling to the Veracians. The galaxy was running out of time. But for the first time in months, there was a small spark of hope. Humanity was stepping onto the galactic stage, and the rules of war were about to change. The USV Horizon cut through space like a silver blade, leading a fleet of 50 Earth warships. Admiral Patricia Winters stood on the bridge, watching as her ships formed up in a pattern that no alien fleet had ever used before. "Diamond shell formation," she ordered. "Keep the support ships in the center." The fleet responded instantly, ships moving with precision that impressed even the Alliance observers on board. Patricia had spent weeks studying Voratian attack patterns. The hive-mind aliens always fought in tight, predictable swarms. Their strength was in numbers, not flexibility. "We're approaching Proxima Centauri, Admiral," said Navigator Ryan Cooper. Patricia nodded. Proxima was the first human colony outside the solar system, established 30 years ago. Now it was under siege by a Voratian attack force. "All ships, prepare for battle," she said calmly. "Remember your training." The Voratian ships appeared on their scanners, hundreds of them, shaped like giant insects with glowing red engines. They'd moved together in perfect unison, a sure sign of their hive-mind connection. "They're forming attack clusters," reported Tactical Officer Maria Diaz. Patricia smiled slightly. "Execute pattern Delta." The human fleet suddenly broke its formation, ships scattering in seemingly random directions. The Voratians hesitated, their perfect coordination momentarily confused by the chaotic movement. "Fire all weapons," Patricia ordered. The space around Proxima lit up with energy beams and missile trails. Human ships darted between Voratian formations, hitting them from unexpected angles, never staying still long enough to become easy targets. On the smaller attack vessel, USV Raptor, Captain Daniel Grant led a special mission. While the main fleet engaged the Voratians in orbit, his team would break through to the planet's surface where colonists were trapped. "Stay close and follow my lead," Daniel told his squadron of 10 ships. "We have one shot at this." The Raptor dove toward the planet, weaving through debris and enemy fire. The Voratians immediately sent ships to intercept them. "They're adapting to our patterns," warned Daniel's second-in-command, Lieutenant Amy Parker. "Then let's give them something new to think about," Daniel replied. "All ships, activate countermeasures and execute Broken Arrow." The human ships suddenly released clouds of metallic particles and electromagnetic pulses. The Voratian sensors couldn't penetrate the cloud, and their ships slowed in confusion. Daniel's squadron slipped through the gap and screamed into Proxima's atmosphere. On the ground, the human colony was surrounded by Voratian ground troops. Tall, insect-like creatures moving with eerie coordination. "There's the Colonial Defense Center," Amy pointed at a domed building on their screens, still holding, but barely. Daniel's ships landed in a protective circle around the building. Marines rushed out in combat suits, creating a perimeter while evacuation ships began loading civilians. Back in orbit, Admiral Winters watched as her fleet executed maneuvers that scattered the Voratian ships. Earth scientists had been busy in the weeks since the decision to join the war. Lieutenant Samuel Hayes had developed a new shield modulation that could withstand Voratian weapons for longer periods. "The enemy is falling back," reported Maria. "They're regrouping at the edge of the system." Patricia allowed herself a small smile. "Begin recovery operations for Captain Grant's team." On Proxima's surface, Daniel supervised the evacuation of nearly 2,000 colonists. The last transport was lifting off when a massive Voratian force surged toward their position. "We're cut off from orbit," Amy said, her voice tense. Daniel looked at his remaining Marines. "Buy the civilians time to escape. That's our mission." The small human force dug in, preparing for what seemed like a suicide stand. But just as the Voratians attacked, the sky lit up with weapons fire from above. 3 human destroyers broke through the blockade, providing covering fire. 6 hours later, Daniel's team made it back to the fleet, having lost only 2 ships. The battle for Proxima Centauri had been won, the first human victory against the Voratians. News spread quickly throughout the Alliance. After months of defeat, someone had finally stood against the swarm and won. Hope, so long forgotten, began to flicker across the galaxy. Admiral Patricia Winters stood at the head of a large circular table. Around her sat representatives from 12 different Alliance species, a war council unlike any the galaxy had seen before. The Voratians adapt quickly, Patricia explained, pointing to a holographic map showing recent battle sites. But they have one weakness. Their hive mind makes decisions based on patterns and probabilities. The blue-skinned Nariani ambassador nodded slowly. And humans are unpredictable. Exactly. Patricia smiled. We're going to use Earth's military history to create strategies the Voratians have never encountered. On the far side of the room, Captain Daniel Grant activated a series of historical battle simulations. These are from Earth's past, desert warfare from North Africa, naval battles from the Pacific, guerrilla tactics from various conflicts. We'll adapt them to space combat. The aliens watched with fascination as ancient human battles play out before them. Some looked horrified, others impressed. All of them understood that humans brought something new to this war, thousands of years of fighting experience. 3 days later, Commander Alexis Rivera led a small fleet of fast attack ships through the debris field of an abandoned mining system. As a former Special Forces operative, she specialized in unconventional warfare. Radio silence, she ordered her crews. Power down to minimal systems. Her ships drifted silently through the debris, sensors barely active, waiting. 6 hours later, a Voratian supply convoy entered the system, following their usual route to the front lines. Now, Alexis whispered, though there was no need. Her crews knew the plan. 20 human ships suddenly powered up and accelerated toward the convoy from different directions. The Voratian escorts reacted in confusion, their usual coordinated defense disrupted by the simultaneous attacks from multiple vectors. Within minutes, the supply ships were destroyed. The human vessels disappeared back into the debris field before reinforcements could arrive. This scene repeated across a dozen systems. Human commanders apply Earth's military principles to space warfare with devastating effect. The Voratian supply lines began to fall apart. At a research station orbiting Jupiter, Dr. Eleanor Phillips watched as her team tested a new device. The small metal sphere pulsed with energy, sending out waves that affected nearby electronic systems in strange ways. The Voratians communicate through electromagnetic signals, she explained to Admiral Winters during a video call. This neural interference device disrupts those signals temporarily. Patricia leaned forward, intrigued. How long does the effect last? Only a few minutes in our tests, Eleanor replied. But during that time, the hive-mind connection is completely severed. That could change everything, Patricia said. How soon can we deploy it? At the front lines, the Voratians were adapting. Their ships began using more complex formations, trying to counter human unpredictability. Captain Grant noticed the change during a skirmish near Ta City. They're learning, he told Admiral Winters afterward. We need to know more about how they think. Patricia considered this for a moment. What are you suggesting? Let me take a stealth ship behind their lines, Daniel said. We need to understand their command structure better. The mission was approved with reluctance. Daniel selected a small crew including Lieutenant Amy Parker and 3 specialists trained in covert operations. Their ship, the USV Shadow, was painted with light-absorbing material and equipped with the latest stealth technology. Meanwhile, Earth opened its military academies to Alliance species. Alien officers learned human combat techniques, studying everything from ancient Roman legion tactics to modern guerrilla warfare. A young Centauri pilot approached Commander Rivera after a training session. Your species frightens me, he admitted. You've spent your entire history finding better ways to kill each other. Alexis nodded. Yes, and now we're using that knowledge to save the galaxy. Slowly but surely, the Alliance began to reclaim lost territories. System by system, planet by planet, the Voratians were pushed back. For the first time, the hive mind was facing an enemy it couldn't easily predict or overcome. The war was far from over, but the tide had begun to turn. Humanity's strategic mind was proving to be exactly what the galaxy needed in its darkest hour. The bridge of the USV Horizon shook violently as another blast hit the shields. Warning lights flashed across every console. Admiral Patricia Winters grabbed a nearby railing to steady herself. "Damage report," she shouted over the alarms. "Shields at 20%, replied Tactical Officer Maria Diaz, her face lit by the red emergency lights. Decks 12 through 15 are evacuating. The Voratians had launched a massive counterattack, larger than any the Alliance had faced before. Over 300 high ships had appeared simultaneously across 5 different sectors. This was not a random attack. They were targeting Earth specifically. They've adapted, Patricia realized. They know we're the ones coordinating the resistance. Another explosion rocked the ship. A power conduit burst overhead, showering the bridge with sparks. Patricia felt a sharp pain as debris struck her head and shoulder. Blood trickled down her face, but she remained at her post. "Admiral, we need to get you to medical," urged her first officer. "Not yet," she said firmly. Status of the fleet. The news was grim. 3 human outposts had already fallen. The Voratians had somehow predicted their defensive patterns and broken through with terrifying efficiency. In the Arcturus system, the USV Shadow emerged from stealth mode to discover the human colony they're already overrun. Captain Daniel Grant watched from the bridge as Voratian ships swarmed the planet. "We're too late," he said quietly. "Captain, we have multiple hostile ships on approach," warned Lieutenant Amy Parker. "They've detected us." Daniel made a quick decision. "Get us out of here. Maximum speed." The Shadow turned to flee, but 3 Voratian cruisers cut off their escape route. Energy beams sliced through the Shadow's engines. The small stealth ship tumbled out of control. "All hands, abandon ship," Daniel ordered, even as fires broke out across the bridge. The Shadow's escape pods launched into the chaos of battle. From the planet's surface, Voratian ground forces targeted the pods with anti-aircraft fire. Daniel's pod took a direct hit and spiraled toward the planet's surface, trailing smoke and debris. Back on the USV Horizon, Admiral Winters ordered an emergency evacuation as the flagship's main reactor approached critical levels. Crew members rushed to escape pods as the ship began to break apart around them. Patricia was the last to leave the bridge. As her escape pod separated from the dying ship, she watched through the small viewport as the Horizon, pride of Earth's fleet, exploded in a brilliant flash of light. At Earth's defense headquarters, Lieutenant Samuel Hayes received the reports with growing horror. Admiral Winters was injured and being evacuated. The USV Horizon was destroyed. Captain Grant's stealth mission had failed, with all hands presumed lost. And worst of all, Dr. Eleanor Phillips had been captured while testing her neural interference device near the front lines. "Sir," a communications officer called out, "we've lost contact with outposts in sectors 7, 12, and 15. Samuel took a deep breath. As the highest-ranking officer still at his post, command had fallen to him. "Redirect all remaining ships to defensive positions around Earth and Mars. We need to buy time." President Olivia Clark was briefed in the underground bunker beneath the White House. Her advisors urged immediate evacuation to the secret facility on Europa. "Madam President, the Voratians will reach Earth in less than 72 hours, warned General Frank Roberts. "We need to get you to safety." Olivia looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleet. Then she shook her head. "No, I will not abandon Earth in its time of need. Prepare a broadcast to all citizens." An hour later, her face appeared on screens across Earth and its colonies. Despite the fear in her eyes, her voice remained steady. "People of Earth," she began, "we face the greatest threat in our history. The Voratians have launched a direct assault on our world. They believe that by cutting off the head, they will defeat us. They are wrong." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "Humanity has faced extinction before. We have endured ice ages, plagues, world wars, and natural disasters. Each time, we have emerged stronger. We will not surrender. We will not evacuate. We will stand our ground and show the galaxy what humans do in their darkest hour." As her speech ended, billions of humans prepared for what might be their final battle. The darkness had never seemed more complete. Yet deep in space, aboard a damaged escape pod, Admiral Patricia Winters opened her eyes, determined to fight on. Captain Daniel Grant opened his eyes to near darkness. Pain shot through his left leg as he tried to move. The escape pod had crashed in a dense forest on Arcturus Prime. For 3 days, he had hidden from Voration patrols, treating his wounds with the pod's medical kit. Now, as he limped through the underbrush, he spotted something unexpected. A group of humans and aliens working together to salvage parts from downed ships. Survivors, forming a resistance. "Captain Grant," a voice called out in disbelief. It was Sergeant Eric Powell, a Marine he'd worked with on previous missions. "We thought you were dead." Daniel managed a smile despite the pain. "Not yet. What's the situation here?" Eric led him to an underground bunker hidden beneath the ruins of a colonial outpost. Inside, nearly 50 survivors, both human and alien, had created a makeshift base. Maps of Voration patrol routes covered the walls. "We've been hitting their supply lines," Eric explained. "Small strikes, nothing major, but we're hurting them." Daniel studied the maps with growing interest. "We can do more than hurt them. We can blind them." In the medical bay of a refugee ship near Jupiter, Admiral Patricia Winters pushed away the doctor trying to examine her injuries. Her head was bandaged, and her left arm hung in a sling. "Admiral, you need rest," the doctor insisted. "What I need is to rejoin my fleet," Patricia replied firmly. She winced as she stood, but her eyes remained clear and determined. "The Voratians are 3 days from Earth. I won't sit here while they attack my home." Against medical advice, Patricia returned to duty. She found Lieutenant Samuel Hayes coordinating what remained of Earth's defenses. "Admiral." Sam's face showed both relief and concern. "We didn't know if you'd survived." "Status report," Patricia demanded, ignoring the pain in her shoulder. "Not good," Sam admitted. "We've lost 23 ships. The Voratians have established a blockade around the Proxima system, and they'll reach Earth in 60 hours. Patricia nodded grimly. "Then we have work to do. Get me Commander Rivera." Across Earth and its colonies, something remarkable was happening. President Clark's speech had ignited a fire in the human population. Factories that once made civilian goods now produced weapons and ship parts. Retired military personnel volunteered for service. Citizens trained for civil defense. Even children joined the effort, helping to assemble emergency medical kits or growing food in community gardens. Humanity was mobilizing for total war. In a Voratian prison facility on the edge of Alliance space, Dr. Eleanor Phillips carefully studied the guards patrolling her cell block. They moved in perfect unison, turning at exactly the same moment, responding to commands no one else could hear. Eleanor had been testing her neural disruptor when her ship was captured. The device itself had been destroyed, but she remembered how to build it. All she needed were the right parts. When the lights flickered briefly, a sign of the facility's aging power system, she began working on a lock of her cell using a small piece of metal she'd salvaged from her bed frame. Lieutenant Hayes led a small fleet of fast ships toward the prison facility. Intelligence suggested Dr. Phillips was being held there, along with other high-value prisoners. The mission was risky, but they needed her expertise to complete the improved neural disruptor. "All ships, prepare for stealth approach," Sam ordered. "We'll have one chance at this." As Earth prepared for the coming attack, something unexpected occurred. Alliance ships from a dozen different species arrived in the solar system. Their captains requested permission to serve under human command. "We've seen how you fight," said a Centauri captain. "We want to learn." Admiral Winters, now operating from a temporary headquarters on Mars, welcomed the reinforcements. She immediately began integrating the alien ships into her defense plans. The Voratian fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system right on schedule. Their ships moved in perfect formation, thousands of them blackening the stars. Earth's orbital defenses powered up, ready for the fight of their lives. But as the first shots were exchanged, a message came through from an unexpected source, Captain Daniel Grant, very much alive, and broadcasting from deep in Voratian territory. "Admiral," his voice crackled through static, "we found their weakness." Admiral Patricia Winters studied the data Captain Grant had transmitted. It showed the locations of hidden Voratian command nodes, special ships that helped coordinate the hive mind across vast distances. "If we can hit all these targets simultaneously," she told her war council, "we might create enough confusion to launch our counterattack." The plan was bold. It would be the largest coordinated fleet action in galactic history, stretching across 12 systems at once. Every available ship would participate, human and alien alike. "We'll need perfect timing," Commander Alexis Rivera pointed out. "One mistake, and the Voratians will adapt." Patricia nodded. "That's why we'll use Earth's old submarine warfare tactics. Complete radio silence until the moment of attack." While the main fleet prepared, Lieutenant Samuel Hayes worked with Dr. Eleanor Phillips, who had been rescued from the Voratian prison during a daring raid. Together, they improved the neural disruptor technology. The original device had limited range, Eleanor explained, showing Sam her new design. "This version can affect an entire fleet at once." The new disruptors were quickly manufactured and distributed to key ships throughout the Alliance fleet. If they worked as designed, they would temporarily sever the connection between Voratian ships and their hive mind. Deep in Voratian territory, Captain Daniel Grant led his growing band of resistance fighters in preparations for their part of the plan. They had spent weeks identifying critical communication relay stations used by the enemy. "Each team has their target," Daniel told the assembled fighters. "We strike exactly 23 hours from now, no earlier, no later." His resistance now numbered over 200, including escaped prisoners, and even a few aliens who had been immune to the Voratian hive mind control. They had limited weapons but plenty of determination. Back on Earth, President Olivia Clark finalized negotiations with previously neutral species who had been watching the war from the sidelines. "The Voratians will come for you next," she told the ambassador from the Trilaxian Confederation. "This is everyone's fight." One by one, the neutral powers agreed to join. Their ships weren't as advanced as Earth's, but they added crucial numbers to the coming battle. Admiral Winters boarded her new flagship, the USV Defiant. Her injuries still pained her, but she ignored the discomfort as she took her place on the bridge. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said Tactical Officer Maria Diaz, who had survived the destruction of the Horizon. Patricia nodded. "Send the coded signal. Operation Hammer begins in 6 hours." Across the galaxy, Alliance ships powered up their engines and moved into position. The plan had been practiced and rehearsed for days, with every captain knowing exactly where to be and when. The hours ticked by slowly. On the Defiance bridge, Patricia checked the time again. 2 minutes to synchronization. When the moment came, over 800 ships jumped into action simultaneously, appearing near Voratian command nodes across multiple systems. Before the enemy could react, the neural disruptors activated. For the first time, the perfect coordination of the Voratian fleet faltered. Ships drifted out of formation, weapons fired at random targets, and defensive shields fluctuated wildly. In the confusion, Alliance forces struck with devastating precision. Command nodes exploded one after another as torpedoes found their marks. On Voratian-occupied planets, Captain Grant's resistance fighters sabotaged relay stations, further disrupting the enemy's communication network. Daniel himself led the team that destroyed the main relay on Arcturus Prime, fighting through heavy security to plant explosives at the central terminal. As he watched the facility burn, Daniel activated his emergency communicator. "Target destroyed. Resistance teams report 80% success rate." Commander Rivera led the precision strikes against the Voratian breeding worlds, where new warriors were being grown in massive hatcheries. Her ships deployed special weapons designed to target the incubation chambers without harming the planet itself. "We're not here to commit genocide," she had told her crews, "just to stop their war machine." Lieutenant Hayes discovered something unexpected while monitoring captured Voratian vessels. When the neural link was severed, the ship's automated systems remained functional. "Admiral," he reported excitedly, "we can reprogram their own ships to attack them." Across a dozen fronts, the tide of battle turned. The combined alliance forces pushed steadily toward the Voratian home system, reclaiming planets that had been lost months before. For the first time since the war began, victory seemed possible. The Voratian collective consciousness, once so powerful and unified, began to fragment under the sustained neural attacks. The Voratian home system loomed ahead, a cluster of 7 planets orbiting a red giant star. At the center of the system was Hive Prime, birthplace of the Voratian species and heart of their collective consciousness. Admiral Patricia Winters stood on the bridge of the USV Defiant, studying the sensor readings. The final battle would be the hardest yet. Despite their recent losses, the Voratians had gathered their remaining forces to defend their homeworld. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said Maria Diaz. "Captain Grant's team has reached the surface." Patricia nodded. The plan was simple but dangerous. While the Alliance fleet engaged the Voratian ships in space, Captain Daniel Grant would lead a ground assault on the primary consciousness hub, a massive structure that housed the original hive mind. "Begin the attack," Patricia ordered, "and may luck be with us all." The battle erupted across the system. Alliance ships moved in complex patterns designed by human strategists, constantly changing tactics to confuse the weakened hive mind. On the surface of Hive Prime, Daniel and his team fought their way through the alien city. The buildings were organic in nature, looking more like giant insect nests than human structures. Sergeant Eric Powell led one squad while Lieutenant Amy Parker, who had survived the crash with Daniel, led another. "The main hub should be just ahead," Daniel told them, checking his scanner. "Remember, we need to place the neural disruptors at these exact points." The hub was an enormous dome covered in pulsing, blue-veined tissue. Inside, the team faced heavy resistance. Voratian warriors moved to protect the central chamber, where the original queen, source of the hive mind, resided. In orbit above, the space battle reached its peak. Admiral Winters implemented her most daring strategy yet, using captured Voratian ships as remote-controlled weapons. "Send in the drones," she ordered. Dozens of reprogrammed Voratian vessels plunged into the enemy formation, causing chaos and confusion. Lieutenant Hayes monitored the neural disruptor network from the Defiant Science Lab. "The disruption is holding, Admiral. Their coordination is down 60%. At the Alliance science vessel nearby, Dr. Eleanor Phillips made a startling discovery while analyzing live readings from the planet's surface. "The Voratian consciousness isn't what we thought," she reported to Admiral Winters. "It's not naturally a collective. They were individual beings once." She quickly explained her findings. Centuries ago, the Voratians had artificially created their hive mind to survive an ecological disaster. What began as a survival mechanism had evolved into something else entirely. "We don't need to destroy them," Eleanor concluded. "We can separate them from the hive mind permanently. They would return to individual consciousness." This information reached Daniel just as his team fought their way to the central chamber. Inside, they found not a monster, but a tragic figure, the original Voratian queen, kept alive for centuries, her mind spread across billions of her offspring. "She's suffering," Amy whispered, seeing the queen's eyes. "This isn't natural." Daniel made a crucial decision. Instead of destroying the hub as planned, he ordered his team to reconfigure the neural disruptors. "We're changing the mission," he told them. "We're going to set them free." The modified disruptors sent a different signal through the Voratian network. Throughout the system, Voratian ships suddenly stopped fighting. Warriors stood motionless, experiencing individual thought for the first time in generations. The battle ended not with destruction, but transformation. The Voratian threat was eliminated as billions of creatures became individuals again, their connection to the hive mind permanently severed. In the weeks that followed, Earth became the new headquarters for the Galactic Defense Command. Admiral Winters was appointed Supreme Commander of the Reformed Alliance. "We face an uncertain future," she told the gathered representatives of 100 worlds. "But we will face it together." Captain Grant established a new early warning system across the galaxy, ensuring no threat would ever catch them unprepared again. Dr. Phillips worked with former Voratians, helping them adjust to individual existence. A memorial was built in orbit around Earth, a massive ring listing the names of every world and every species that had fought in the war. At its center burned an eternal flame, visible from the planet's surface. Humanity had done more than save the galaxy. They had transformed it, bringing their unique perspective to a coalition of species that would now look to Earth for leadership. The galaxy had lost all hope, until the humans took command. Now, a new era of peace and cooperation had begun.